to the first of this week's episodes where John, Dave and myself are going to look back over Leinster's defeat against the Glasgow Warriors last weekend. So boys, 33-25 to Leinster. We didn't manage to get any bonus points.
No, that was the one real sickener now, in fairness. Everybody is going to feel that way, being missing out a losing bonus point by a single point and missing out by having three tries so early on.
Away from home to Glasgow.
Away from home to Glasgow. Like, I can remember thinking during the game, after we got the third try, look, I don't care if we don't win this game as long as we get another try, because then we're guaranteed at least 1 point and possibly two. So, I was very disappointed to come away with nothing. But the other side of that coin,
because we had a couple of opportunities for penalties that we decided to turn down and went for the corner.
I don't think so necessarily, because that that would have you don't get a fourth try by.
Yeah, but you could get.
You might have got the losing bonus point, but what I think it was more down to was having a non-spectacular bench. The bench players didn't really add, like, maybe it was the way they were managed. They brought on too many of them together, or not exactly together, but at a similar time. They changed it all very quickly, so I think they had a bit of trouble gelling. And I think that's what contributed the most because it just came at the wrong time. Whereas this week we could see, which we'll get to later, we could see a lot stronger bench, especially in the pack, which might have tipped things in our favour. The guys have come on up to speed a bit more. That's my take on it anyway. That's where it all went wrong. Plus our traditional second half. It's written in the manual somewhere.
Well, we scored a penalty in the 43rd minute.
Yeah.
And then we scored 3 more points in the entire.
And that was
rest
it.
Of the game.
Well, I was going to say, look, I didn't see the game live because I was at a wedding, but I saw it the next day, and even knowing what the score was and pretty much knowing the pattern of the scoring, watching the last 20 minutes was still you're still kind of, it was still kind of frustrating because actually we played really, really well.
That's it.
We played much better in that game. Obviously, we'd have to, otherwise we'd come home with a hammering. We played much better in that game than we did against Treviso, for example. But the thing that's in common with Treviso is disappointment over lost bonus points. I mean, those are 3 bonus points we've lost over the first 2 games. On the other hand,
it was very encouraging.
Performances
from the starters,
in particularly in that second game. Well, in the game against Glasgow, we looked dangerous. We took our tries well, but we're still not quite as sharp as we should be, and obviously we have a significant number of players away.
No, but it's building. It really is. Like last year, obviously we were very disrupted with the World Cup. We did late change of coach. We did, with so many things going on. This year we're looking a lot more. Okay, in terms of points on the board, we haven't hit the ground running, but we're looking a lot more fluid. We're looking like we're a lot more confident. We're a lot more, we're more at ease with our game. Okay, we've learned a few harsh lessons for the young lads, but I think you were talking about it earlier, Jason. You might come on to it about how many players we had missing. We had, compared to Glasgow, I'd say we had about 3-4 times as many players that could have been there, but for injury or for player rest, than Glasgow had. Whereas this time last year, we were both missing 20 players at the World Cup. So it's. I just feel that we have an extra gear in us there, and it's whatever about Europe, but in the league, I just think we're going to be there.
Well, we like
barring a massive injury crisis at the wrong time, I think we're going to be.
We do have a huge number of quality players to come back.
Yeah.
Not just any old players. I mean, significant players, many of whom would be certainly consider themselves within the first 15, if not 23, anyway.
And some of them might have a hard job getting back in, or maybe a little bit harder than they thought. Job getting back in.
I mean, we were discussing it earlier. There are significant options, particularly in the front row, maybe in the back row as well.
Back row, front row. I mean, I wouldn't be saying Johnny who because of Joey Carberry's 2 performances, but I'd be saying, everybody else who. You know what I mean? He's jumped out of the pack of 3, the 3 following out halves.
He has,
and he's
opened up a gap.
He's opened up a gap there.
The way he attacked the line was fantastic, and I think he put Murphy through on at least 2 times, and his kick across for Kirshner.
Well, that shouldn't be shown before 9 o'clock.
That was gorgeous.
Pure dirt, it was fantastic.
But there were some lovely touches in there, and you could see that he's got class. And I think the most important thing that he has is time. It looks like he's got so much time
Yeah.
on the ball. Like, he's only 20 and he's not going to have the perfect performance.
As usual, people were complaining about the passing of our various scrum halves. I don't think it matters who plays. People are going to complain about their passing. I thought it was serviceable from both.
But it's still not on a plate, Dave.
Yeah, but didn't seem to bother Carberry, even with whatever.
Well, he knocked one on
Yeah.
because of a poor pass
But
just
even,
before.
True.
even with the standard, he still seemed to have time. You know,
Yeah, he's very unflustered. So we'll see how that develops, but it's hard to see anybody else being number 2. And if he keeps going at that rate, by the end of the season, you just don't know. I mean,
sport is like that. It presents opportunities to individuals.
He could be moved to Munster.
he could be moved to Munster.
Sport is like that. It presents opportunities to individuals, and they take them or they don't. The good players take them. The great players seize them. The bad players don't.
I think we're going to miss Ian Madigan less than we thought because of Joey
It was
Carberry.
interesting. I was listening to something on the radio.
Well, I still think we're missing Ian Madigan because there's still a lot of questions over the inside centre position. If and when anyone comes back, or as we are right now, I think Madigan would have been an absolute beaut in that position for us.
Yeah.
Well, possibly.
Just going back to the Carberry thing, I was listening to the radio and they were actually mentioned that it was Graham Henry that kind of, when he saw him, and they were saying, well, there's Kyle Marsh and there's Byrne. But when Henry saw him, he said,
Nah,
no,
mate.
This is the boy.
That's the boy.
And this is your guy for 10 years.
Kiwi Mafia.
He said, apparently.
The Kiwi Mafia, Jay.
That's it, yeah, maybe so. But we obviously scored 3 tries. Why don't we have a look at the first one? Mr. Carney got his season off to a good start.
Certainly did. It was a nice try as well. I mean, there he is there. He gets involved in the try a couple of times.
Is the jersey growing on you?
No.
But it's good. It's got to be good for a few offside calls and hands in the ruck, just because the ref will be able to see us so much easier.
I think it might have an advantage in that it might be harder to see numbers. The IRFU had a jersey where the numbers were deliberately difficult to make out.
I remember that. Yeah. Oh, few holes being punched, like. The back row is such
There you go.
Yeah,
Lovely ball.
Yeah.
beautiful.
That's like a steam train there, isn't it?
Yeah, Jordy Murphy did that a few times, and I think Van der Fleer was up to it as well. He had a bit of work to do, our Rob, Unfortunately, got injured in the game. But that was a nice little way to come back, wasn't
He was
it?
involved in one of the tries last week as well, which he showed beautiful hands. Remember when I think it was the first Carberry try went wide first, and he showed lovely hands. He took and gave a pass to put. It was the phase before the phase that the try was scored in, and he's been playing very well since he's come back.
But I mean, he's probably was in his first choice Irish international since 07, maybe 08.
Yeah.
And he's probably the first time he's probably under pressure for that position since.
Yeah. So it might show the making. It'll show us what kind of a. If this is his response, then it's a good one.
Yeah.
That run from Murphy though, the few of them that the angles, the angle and the pace, like to hit the ball at that speed, going at the angle, it's very hard to defend. And there's a few of them teeing it up. It's great to see the back row playing so well, especially like when you think Rhys Ruddock, Sean O'Brien, Jamie Heaslip. They'd be top
Could be your starters.
They'd be top of anyone's list in most clubs in the world, but we've got these 3 lads who
when we were in our pomp, we had
are
options
flying
in the back row. We had Geno, we had a young Sean O'Brien, and we had Kevin McLaughlin, we had Nathan Hines who could move between the two. He played about 6.
Occasionally,
So I mean, we have those options again, and it'd be. I mean, if you're an opposition team and you've just been absolutely battered by O'Brien and Ruddock and Heaslip, and then they trot off and you think, oh great, a break, and you see Dan Levy and Josh Van der Fleer coming on, no break.
like those 2
They're going to
guys.
take the pace.
That's what we kind of did with Jennings.
Yeah.
Up the pace. When
Up
he
the
came
pace,
on.
and that's what I mean. Maybe that's what we were missing on Saturday. We didn't actually take the pace up because that's how you beat a team. You beat a team. You wear it down, then you go faster,
Yeah.
You hit harder.
We took Bent off after 46 minutes.
Yeah.
So he was obviously blowing on that pitch. I mean, it was a super fast pitch with the 4G.
Well, that's what got us
And
off to a.
And Mick McCarthy as well. Like he, and he's not a young man anymore. So and
He
one of
was
their tries,
knackered when he
fell-
came off.
Yeah, exactly, but he fell off that
The
tackle.
pass, yeah, or the tackle on,
Although,
on
in fairness,
Seymour.
I
so
know-
did Ross Maloney.
He wasn't the only one, of course, but I'm just saying that those pitches fatigue you.
Well, what
Yeah.
those pitches do is, if you're not in the right place properly, they're very unforgiving. Because the guys can accelerate through, they
Very
don't slip.
quickly, yeah.
You don't get the opportunity to slide in. I mean, you have to be precision is the key on these. And for a team like Glasgow, who are a team that are built on precision, it's perfect for them.
Tommy Seymour, though, what a class act.
Yeah.
How many people score 4 tries in a top level competitive game?
And he scored 2 the previous weekend.
Very, very few. Like he's a phenomenon.
Yeah.
I think Ulster let him go. Like he's growing year on year. Like, I mean, he was impressive last year. He's really impressive this year.
The big question will be now
He nearly beat us on his own.
if he steps up to international level, because that's kind of been, you know, there's been a lot of wingers in the pro tour, and indeed in all rugby, who've looked good in their domestic competition, but haven't always made the step up. I'm thinking of maybe Tim Visser, for example, was massively dominant winger in the Pro 12 or
Yeah.
in the Celtic League, and never really made that step up. It's happened before.
He can score.
He's on the last of a line of on a Scottish backline that wasn't particularly
No, that's
potent.
true. No, that's a
Pedestrian.
very valid point.
Anyway, you mentioned Van der Fleer earlier. Like he managed to get on the score sheet.
Apparently,
as well.
Ronan O'Mahony is suing him for plagiarism for this try.
Come on.
After last week, do you remember Ronan O'Mahony's try for Munster last week? Where
Oh,
he,
yeah. Run through the
You see, have you noticed how much more we're doing that this year? Just passing before the tackle.
like
Audacious.
audacious.
If try we scored against Wales in the '95 World Cup.
Yeah. Well, it's the exact same try as Ronan O'Mahony scored last week. I mean, it's something that you identify the teams aren't numbering up.
But it's
You know?
also that he broke the attempt at a tackle early on because he was moving. He just went for it straight away. He was moving at such pace the acceleration was there. You can see it now. Somebody got a half a hand on him.
Yeah.
It
But
was
there
good vision, wasn't it, to see
No
that there was
way.
no one
Oh
there.
yeah.
There was no way he was being stopped. In the same way as we're looking at Tommy Seymour's intercept and going, oh, Jesus Christ. Glasgow are looking at that try and going, oh, Jesus Christ. You know,
It was just
gave
it
him
was
a
kind
walk
of
in.
constantly during the match. We'd score, they'd score, we'd score, they'd
Yeah.
score, and it was just unfortunate then that we had this 5 or 10 minutes of a black spot during the game that we just let them claw back our 10-point lead.
Well, that as you say, it is unfortunate. It's not unknown for Leinster to lose 10 minutes or 20 minutes of a match, just disappear for that period of time. Normally, they're good enough to get over it. This time, obviously, Glasgow are slightly better than. I mean, you might get away with it against Newport or against Edinburgh or against Munster, but against a good team like Glasgow, you haven't got a hope.
Yeah. They are good. They're a great team.
Now,
like.
Dave, I think it's gone
do that.
past the threshold.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The watershed.
We're after the
We can-
watershed.
We can show this try.
Rugby porn.
Yeah. Well, the kick is just it's just
On a
sublime.
sixpence.
Yeah.
You don't remember sixpences, Dave? Sure you don't.
No. I remember 6 pence. Because
It used to be an actual coin and everything, Dave.
yeah, because I used to have to I had to negotiate a rise in my pocket money. Hold on, I'll come back to it. Look at this.
Yes.
Oh, it's just great. It was a lovely piece of play.
What more can you say, really,
No.
other than, wow.
And it was scored at just the right time. It was on the stroke at half time, and they had a guy in the bin.
You see,
It's
a
the
try-
best time to get
you
a
see
guy
try
in the
like
bin.
that. All you can do is smoke a cigarette and argue over who gets to sleep in the sticky patch.
Okay. I think you're
Yeah, look at
over egging this particular metaphor here.
As long
Dave.
as it stays unfertilized.
Okay, good man. Well, it has it all. Vision,
He didn't even
execution.
break
No,
stride.
no, it was just perfection.
Yeah.
In fairness to Kirshner, he finished it well.
He did.
Yeah, he did,
You have to be there to finish it, kind of thing. Although I mean, basically all you have to do is run in a straight line.
Yeah, but he had to get there.
Yeah.
and he
You
did
try
get
it,
there.
Dave.
I could walk quite briskly in a straight line.
Yeah.
Just to take you back to my sixpence thing, I had to negotiate a rise in my pocket money when I used to get 20 pence a week, and I used to buy 2000 AD in a JO ice pop, and then JOs went up to sixpence, so I had to negotiate a rise.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, bless you.
Not easy with a cavalman for a father.
Absolutely, well done, mate. I think that deserves an award of some kind.
But yeah, so I mean, the three tries we scored were really nice tries.
Yeah.
And it's just as we were saying earlier, just a
Just that
small
there wasn't a
tinge,
fourth one.
tinge of frustration that we didn't get a fourth one, and that we didn't get that extra point or two that would, or what was the 2 points to bring us within the bonus point.
1 point is all we needed.
Was it? Yeah.
It's more unfortunate that we conceded 5.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's one thing that, like, we can sing the praises of this team, but there was a few things that were disappointing. Particularly the first try, we defended very narrow. We had in the second half, we had an opportunity very similar to where they scored that try, and the ball went out wide, I think, to Dave Carney, and he had to cut back in because they actually held their width. Also, like, in our defence, our line speed was quite good some of the time, but not all of the time.
The first half it was good.
First half, yeah, but we fell off tackles. Especially say the one just shortly after the intercept. Like, that guy should have been put to ground well before.
Well, do you remember the way Ireland fell apart at altitude in South Africa? And they literally looked like somebody had just taken the batteries out of them at about 60, 70 minutes.
Do you think that's a problem? Do you think
I'm
that's
not-
a fitness problem?
The altitude in Glasgow.
Yeah, shit in Glasgow. No, I'm talking about the pitch, but also the main thing I'm talking about, and back to the substitutes thing, like, that system was working really well in the first half. Like, guys were up, the line speed was great, the coverage. I remember in the Pro 12 final, our coaches were giving out about not being able to get our spacings correct. Our spacings were perfect. We were filling the whole pitch and leaving no gaps, and we were driving them back when they had possession. So they were getting the ball on our 10-metre line, and 2 phases later they were back behind their own 10-metre line, even if they still had the ball, and quite often they didn't. So, it was both system-wise and execution-wise, our defence was looking really good in the first half, and it fell away. And I put that down to those two things: the fast pitch tiring us out, and the substitutes coming on who weren't quite up to speed on the system as well as the starters.
The system will have certainly. I mean, there won't have been any major change, but there will have been an evolution in that system in the
With
in the
Mr.
last
Lancaster.
10 days because there's a new coach there. So there will be that element there, and like you were saying, we defended very deep or very narrow. Sometimes when Leinster do come under pressure, they do get very narrow. If you remember the Pro 12 final, we were defending extremely narrow against a team. That's what most annoyed me about the Pro 12 final was how narrow we defended against a team that
we're going wide every time.
Always plays wide.
We made them look brilliant.
Yeah,
that's what we did in that final.
So I mean, maybe that's the default for this team, that if when they come under pressure they do get quite narrow. So if you have leaders in the team, which maybe we didn't have because so many players are away, or maybe we didn't have enough of them to actually instruct them to just keep their shape, or to encourage them to keep their shape, or to manage that.
I'm
those
sure.
few phases of play. So you add all these things up, and they all come together. I mean, it's not just. Obviously, it's not because there weren't leaders, and it's not because there's a new coach, and it's not because it's and.
All of them, yeah. Well, I mean, Stuart Lancaster, to listen to his namesake Stuart Barnes during the game, you'd think he had just invented a new defensive system
rugby.
in a week and had us playing it. Like, I'm sure he's had an input, but
I'm sure it's only
you can't really redesign the whole defence in a week, But I'm sure he did put a few nice cherries on top of it, in fairness, and point them in the right direction.
And, in early seasons, sometimes if you look back at Leinster's losses over the last 10 years, any losses that have been, I don't think this was a bad loss, right? Let's just get.
No.
I mean, it wasn't. We were unlucky not to get a lot out of the game. We were unlucky not to win the game to a certain extent. Not unlucky, but it could if we had.
It could have happened. Yeah.
It could have happened. So I mean, this wasn't a bad loss. But if you look back at Leinster's, if you like, bigger losses, they always come early in the season when guys are coming back in. People aren't quite so sure about systems. Maybe there's a bit of confusion between Ireland and Leinster, whichever. All those various different things come into the mix in early season. So, I mean, to a certain extent, you just kind of have to write it off to experience. I mean, we're disappointed about not getting much out of a game we didn't expect to get much out of.
Yeah, but when you get yourself into a position,
you see it there.
That's
it's
more
disappointing.
disappointing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
if we were beaten out the gate, you nearly kind of accept it and say, well, look at the two teams on paper. Glasgow were pretty much full. We have 10 to 12 first choice international players that are or international standard players who are going to come back, who will be first choice for Leinster,
Mm-hmm.
who will fit back into that team.
Yeah.
But like it was disappointing that we got to have a 10-point lead with 30 minutes to go, and we
Mhm.
blew it.
Yeah.
You know, like that's an
That's
indictment on
that's
the
the
team.
that's the frustration.
It is. It's
Yeah.
frustrating. But one thing, like I was over at the match, and one thing I have to say, Glasgow have done an exceptional job, both on the pitch and off the pitch, but particularly off the pitch. By moving to that stadium, I was talking to some Scottish guys. They were saying that they've got this problem that the council own the track, the running track.
Mm.
They can't build anything more substantial around it. But maybe they better off not falling into the trap, say that happened to down in Limerick, that they build a stadium
White
too
Elephant.
big and
Yeah,
there's a clamour for tickets for the big games there. Like that match was sold out. They're next
Keep scarcity value is very
Next
important.
week-
Yeah.
Very
next-
very important.
their next home
Yeah.
matches. I think they said there was 300 tickets left for that one. Like even like they have a clubhouse that it's all branded in. It reminds me a bit of the Line Out, but they're not quite to the Leinster, up to the same size of Leinster. But Townsend mentioned that in his he sees Leinster as a blueprint where he wants to copy of how they play and as a standard bearer within the league. But their fans see Leinster as a standard bearer on the other side of the white line. That that how the fans are organised, and they have a small little their equivalent of an OLSC who come in and they basically put all of banners up within their clubhouse, and then that's all got to be removed. There's five-a-side football in it the next morning, so everything has to be taken down, and they have a band of loyal fans that are that they're getting behind the team and
Oh, sure.
volunteering to do stuff.
I remember it well, and there's plenty of volunteers at Leinster with the OLSC still
Of course,
doing it
yeah,
for us.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
those flags don't mystically spout onto the seats themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. I mean, that's if you get to a situation where you've got that it doesn't have to be a hardcore, just a core of dedicated fans who are prepared to do things for the club. The club and the fans then grow together.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes my favourite word. It becomes a gestalt. But it does. It genuinely.
One of your
does.
many favourite
Yeah.
words, David.
It
for us.
genuinely does, and the club and the fans just feed off one another, and both get bigger, and both benefit, and both get nourishment from it.
But you see the difference now. I went over, and I think you might have been there as well, Dave, in 2005, in the match that was in Hewington,
Oh,
which
yeah,
was
yeah.
a Scottish rugby club, or a Glasgow rugby club, that wouldn't allow non-members into their bar, that wouldn't serve alcohol. Then, only back in 2012, we played them in Firhill. And
Yeah.
now, there was a big enough crowd that day, but it was in a dodgy area. You just wanted to get in and get out. Whereas we, like on Saturday, we hung around for 2 or 3 hours after the match.
It's
had
about
a few
building a
beers.
community.
Absolutely.
It's about building a community, and that's what we've done. That's what the great thing about the Mick Dawson now says. The great thing that the ODS brought was space. And it gave us an advantage. It gave Leinster an opportunity to do all these things, like the kids' fun days, like open up bars where you could hang around for an hour, 2 hours afterwards. You had rooms where you could have the Centurion bar and the Line Out and the Blue Room,
Yeah.
and these are all going at the same time. Like
Yeah.
it just shows how much demand there is because these are all running at the same time. before
Plus, all the
matches.
pubs around the
Plus
thing
all
are,
the pubs
are
around the
full.
ground. So you get a chance to build a community. That's what Glasgow are learning now, or are in the process of, and it's. But we said at the time, Jason. We said at the time that moving to Scottstown would be the making of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't sure whether
See,
or not it was
what
going to
happens
be
Edinburgh
another.
now when they
Well,
move.
Well, I wasn't sure. Well, I believe Edinburgh are going to move.
They're moving to Myerside.
January,
Yeah,
yeah.
January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've moved and they've embraced it.
Yeah.
And like I remember getting a taxi out to the place in Hewington, and the guy didn't even know there was a match on. Got a taxi from the airport out to the match on Saturday, and your man was going. The taxi man knew that. Oh, you going to the rugby? Oh, great stuff, And
Bit of
yeah,
a
no,
buzz.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
But anyway, looking back at some of the other results of the weekend.
Just one more thing is, I mean, because obviously it was the Old Firm at the weekend. One thing that Leinster only really have to deal with one behemoth in their, if you like, Bailiwick, and that's obviously the Dubs.
Yeah.
Glasgow have to deal with two, and
And a professional league.
And we were having this discussion before, but there isn't the crossover between. We'll say most people here would watch Gaelic football, watch a bit of football,
But what
watch
it
rugby.
is, it's disenfranchised soccer fans
yeah.
to an extent, and then there are people from their public schools that wouldn't be interested or mightn't be interested in Rangers Celtic anyway, and grew up playing rugby and watching rugby.
Yeah, I just find it that the great advantage of being, if you like, one of the many advantages of being Irish is that you do get exposed to all these sports, pretty much all the
It
time.
seems as you're one in. You can only have one sport over
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Britain.
yeah. I mean, because like you know yourself, like a lot of the rugby fans, whether they're from Dublin or Meath or Kildare, during the summer they take off the blue jersey and they put on a different shade of blue or the green or the white, you know,
Or whites, Dave.
or whites indeed. Yeah, we do. Yeah, some people do enjoy the sound of leather on willow, and you know some people also enjoy cricket.
We'll go back to look at the other fixtures that were played the weekend. Munster had a narrow defeat to Cardiff down in Cork. They kind of mixed the bad with the good, I thought, in that game.
It was the anti-Scarlets, I thought, in terms of the match. How they were so good against Scarlets, and all the things that they really did well against Scarlets, they kind of didn't do at all.
They had all the
against
possession
Cardiff.
compared. You know, it was nearly the opposite way around. Whereas the previous week they did very little, or did lots with very little. This time they kind of squandered. Going down at home to Cardiff, it's not a good look. Like, you know, it's not. It really isn't. Even though Cardiff are improving.
Yeah, they're your team, huh?
They'll be good until the Six Nations squad's announced.
Yeah, but I'd look on their game a little bit like our own game. While it was an absolute pisser to lose by a point to Cardiff at home, they actually did still show quite a bit of decent stuff in the game. That if they pull it together, and let's not forget, they're missing all their big players.
Yeah,
Like
both of them.
they've about 5 or 6 in fairness, Dave, and they're missing. You know, they're missing all of them at the moment.
Well,
O'Mahony, Murray, Stander was back,
Yeah,
but
well, he came back, but late.
exactly. So you know.
You said O'Mahony, did you?
O'Mahony, I did, yeah. So they've got a bit of growth in them as well, and they look good under
The thing that
their new management
the one thing
structure.
that I thought was quite similar to ourselves was, you know, I was watching the game and Cardiff found it very easy to find gaps outside shoulders, right? So they were putting fish into gaps outside. The pass was taking them outside the man. They weren't having to do anything particularly clever. And I was looking at that and I was thinking back to last week and I was thinking, you know, that's a team that's early in its evolutionary path, and that they were kind of having, to a certain extent, similar issues to what we were saying about Leinster in terms of new systems, new coaches, guys coming back in, lots of changes. You know, that the defensive frailties they showed against Cardiff were very similar in a way in team to the defensive frailties we showed against Glasgow.
But their defence was very good the previous week.
It was, yeah, but that's what happens sometimes. I mean, if you're learning a new system, sometimes it'll work. It'll work well. Sometimes it'll work badly. It only takes a couple of games before it actually
Get it
becomes
right.
second nature. Until you always make the right decision.
I wouldn't be. I actually heard Paul O'Connell saying last week that Munster are definitely the 4th best team in Ireland at the moment. But you know,
Well, I heard a couple of interviews with
they're
Munster people, and they all kind of said we have realistic.
yeah. Well, that's what he said as well. He said for the first time since 2008, they've got realistic expectations. The fans have realistic expectations of the team.
It was the playing staff and the.
Well, he was talking about the fan. O'Connell was talking about the fans, but like, he seemed to think that they were well placed to come back into from 4th place. Whether that'll be past Connacht, Ulster, or Leinster, we don't know yet. But
Do you think they'll win anything with Keighley?
he won't win anything with kids. Is that what you're going to say?
I don't think they will win anything with Keighley, but I don't think they're trying to win anything with Keighley. I mean, Keighley's not. I don't think he's their first choice.
Blayendal's made of glass, though.
Yeah, Blayendal's made of glass, and what's his name? Bill Johnson is injured at the moment as well. But I don't think they went into this season with any intention of Keighley being, first or second choice. To be honest,
But then
with you.
Johnny Holland
I
retired.
thought they had Holland and they had.
Yeah, but Holland's injury, he's injured.
Oh, yeah.
That was 2 years ago he did that, and he was only managing it. So that would have been well flagged from their point
They
of
got
view.
2 years out of it, so maybe they thought they were going to get another 2 years out of
Yeah.
it.
He played bloody well for a guy who was.
He played the majority of the matches in those 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, and
he kicked the ball away when they had an opportunity of going for their win last Friday night. And first thing he did was he kicked it down the line instead of keeping it in hand.
Well, that's his party trick, really, isn't it? This is one he's pretty good at.
he does. The
He's
thing about Keighley is he's
being
got
Ronan
loads
O'Gara's
he's got loads of
understudy,
really
probably.
good attributes. It's just
Pulling them all together,
putting them all together.
playing with
constantly.
confidence.
The thing about O'Gara is O'Gara had his attributes, right? And every single time he went out on the pitch, until quite near the end, he put them
He got
all
them
on the
all,
pitch
yeah,
all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas Keating has never really quite managed to do that. He's never
Rarely.
really convinced them. I mean, he had those couple of drop goals, if you remember, against Northampton. That big drop goal at the end when they beat them in Thomond Park
Yeah.
in the first game of the
45
2012
million and a half phases later, and
Yeah.
didn't he bang it over the bar?
But since then, it's been kind of. I mean, they were in love with him then, but it's been kind of downhill since then.
Yeah, sadly.
Because he is a good player. I mean, he's a very, very good
He has it
player.
all, and at underage level, he was probably one of the best
Yeah, yeah.
ever.
Mhm.
He just, I don't know what it is. It's just
I think it's confidence.
Confidence.
It's just shot. I mean, and
hasn't
you
been
want to be a very
done
hard,
any
thick-skinned
favors.
fella for it not to be affected.
Yeah, I mean, some of the. I mean, he has had an awful lot of bad press, shall we say?
Yeah,
Bad reviews. I mean, maybe.
like this one.
Well, no. See, we're trying to be kind of. I mean, we've been some of the stuff that's been said about him, John. Really, has been. I mean, we're having an honest view of his
But if he was born,
positives and
if
negatives.
he was born in Tralee or Limerick, or if he went to school in Limerick or Tralee, they might view him slightly different.
Maybe
Who
it'd be
knows?
even worse. You know.
I don't know.
Remember what Paddy O'Shea used to say?
I don't know.
You know, there's
Reynolds
no,
done
they're harsher on their own than anyone else. You know.
I don't know. I know. So,
Let's not
Jeremy
dwell on
Staunton.
that one.
so Ulster had a handy enough win against Treviso. I mean, no surprises there, but they didn't put them to the sword.
No,
Neither did we the previous
I don't
week.
think anyone's going to be putting
And
Treviso to the sword. This year.
Kieran Crowley is going to ensure that they're not as easily put to the sword as they would have been. Ulster are actually playing quite. I didn't actually see that game. It's the one game I didn't see, but I think they're playing on the evidence of the previous week pretty well, and they look to have a few holes on it when they come up against a really good team. They might not be so clever, but against the likes of Treviso, they should be scoring bonus points. They're the type of team they are. The back line they have, they should be well able to clean up. I mean, even see their young wingers coming through. They have all the makings there. As soon as they get them a bit of ball, that they should be cleaning up. So we'll see how that goes. But I'd say they're disappointed. They didn't get the fourth.
I have
fourth
a
try.
feeling that they are disappointed, but I have a feeling a lot of teams will be disappointed against Treviso. I think that they're gonna. Sometimes we predict that one of the Italian teams will do something, and then eventually they let
They
us
never
down.
do.
But I think that this time, because they're starting with the right thing with the C word, and then they're going to build performance on top of that, and that's the right way to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Pienaar was making a bit of a statement anyway. He
Yeah,
scored
yeah.
12 of the 22 points, including a try and his kicks.
Yeah.
But it moves them up into third in the table. Connacht suffered another home defeat. They were beaten by the Ospreys 32-11.
Poor Connacht are suffering from several things, and I think we covered most of them last week. They've a target on their head now. Everybody's been analysing their game plan, whereas last year we all sat here saying, "Oh yeah, wait till the Six Nations is over, wait till the World Cup's over, wait till Connacht will revert to type," and they didn't. And they kicked ass all year, but I think there was a little bit of complacency from other teams until very close to the end of the season, where they were going, it's Connacht.
But
Whereas now they're going,
they
let's analyse these guys' game plan to
but
death,
they
because
conceded 3 tries in the last 10 minutes, and they were leading with 18 minutes to
all
go.
the heads
Well,
went down.
The other side of that is the lack of pre-season.
I appreciate that, but
Well, that was the
like-
second thing, and the third thing is both teams who've played them, they're both top of the league on 10 points. B, they both had a bit of a grudge, where
Yeah.
Glasgow didn't want to lose 3 times in a row in the Sports Ground, and Ospreys were denied a victory last year in the Sports
And
Ground
they're
by
both
a
very good
dubious
teams.
decision,
It has to be
and
remembered.
they're also both very good teams.
Well,
So
I think what you mentioned there about not having pre-season is certainly coming home to roost a little bit now.
Yeah.
And I just
Again, it has to be emphasised though, it just because people might say, "Oh, why didn't they organise a better pre-season?" They did do.
it fell apart.
It just fell apart. Not to them. Other teams can. They had games organised that other teams cancelled through a variety of things. Weather being one of them.
Yeah.
So
they played one match, but it was
Yeah.
played like a week or two before our first match.
yeah. They played Montpellier.
Yeah.
Bristol let them down, I think, and
Yeah.
somebody else, another French
Yeah,
team
somebody
as well.
else, Yeah, let them down. Yeah.
I think it was another French team. They were supposed to go out there, or
Whichever didn't work
Whichever.
out for them anyway.
so. Yeah, not so good.
Yeah,
from
well,
Connacht.
the two
They're
kind
they're bottom of the league. Like
They
they're
are, yeah.
actually bottom of the league, below both
I
Italian
wouldn't
teams
get too
and
hung
the
up
Dragons.
on league
I know
positions
it's only
just
2
yet,
games,
but
but
Ospreys and Glasgow are actually they've got maximum number of points
Yeah.
from their 2 matches, And they were the two teams that you would have said at the start of the season were probably one of the favourites, or or been tipped as one of the favourites.
When you look at the league, I mean, you're looking at the all reliables are Glasgow. Well, certainly over the last, we say, 4 or 5 years, are Glasgow, Leinster, Ospreys, and then who else?
Ulster probably.
And Ulster probably, but I mean the three teams that you can always rely on. Now Glasgow, Ospreys actually had a bad year last year, and they kind of fell off things.
Fell out of Europe.
Yeah. But they won't have
First time ever.
they won't have that distraction this year. So they're kind of back to which would be their traditional kind of place. They would be always seen as the best of the Welsh teams.
Oh, like the 4 or 5 titles, like there's
Yeah.
the only Welsh team that's won it more than once.
Yeah. And even when Leinster were in their pomp, they were the one team that
We were shitting it about.
that we were always worried about playing. So yeah, I mean it's no surprise that Ospreys are back up there. They seem to have got their stuff in order. Glasgow obviously are very, very good, but I mean there's a long way to go yet. I mean there's many a slip twixt cup and lip.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks very much, Dave, John, and thanks very much for watching part 1.